Hey, everybody. We have the wizard drummer himself, Bobby Caldwell, on the phone, and I thank you so much for talking to us here at the Wizard, man.
My pleasure.
Okay, so we'll start out with some important questions. What's your favorite color? What's your favorite food? What do you look for?
Okay.
What do you look for in a partner? No, I'm sorry. I'm reading an old issue of 16 magazine here.
That's okay. We'll go to those things.
All right, so actually I do have a question, man. You and I were talking earlier this week, and you said that when Captain Beyond formed, you guys spent 8 months rehearsing. Did you get a chance to road test any of the material? Did you guys play out live at all before recording anything?
No.
Okay.
No, what happened was we were doing this rehearsals at Rhino's house, as I mentioned, like a job every day. We reported it to his house, and we would get there about 9:30 in the morning, and then we would leave about 6, and then we started, working slowly on putting a demo together, and we just kind of doing that, and then we had a few sort of interruptions. Dwayne's we had just sat in with the Allman Brothers at the Whiskey at the beginning of October, and had a great time, and that's when we played him this demo that we had put together. And a few weeks later from that is when he had his accident. So everything stopped, for a bit. So there was a gap there, but we didn't go out and play. I mean, we were really trying to find somebody to manage us. And a lot of people were interested, but, you're just looking around. I mean, there was a lady, remember, who was involved with the Everly Brothers, and she was very nice, but for one reason or another, didn't really work out, and so we were sort of, just trying to feel our way and see what we're going to do.
When you guys recorded the demos, that Lost and Found release that came out, that's with your permission, right? That release?
Yes. Uh-huh. Yep.
I noticed Armworth wasn't on there. Did that get written later in the studio?
Yeah, that might not have been on there. Trying to remember, Brian. I actually I'm trying to remember what was on there. I actually liked the version of Raging River of Fear on that demo better than I did the album.
We just heard that.
Did you really? With Rhino playing slide on that, and yeah. I thought he did a great job, and he was a tremendous slide player, and so yeah, that got omitted for some reason. I'm not really sure why, but.
Now, were you guys all buddies? Did you know Iron Butterfly? Well, you didn't have management, so that answers my question. I was wondering if some management put you guys together. Did you know Rod and Lee and Rhino previously?
Well, see, Rhino and I knew each other sort of from a distance, if you will, in Florida. We knew each other, had met each other, and sort of knew of each other, and so I remember the day that I walked into this gig in Sarasota, and my bass player said, "Well, did you hear that Rhino joined Iron Butterfly?" And I said, "Really?" And so Larry got that breakthrough. Phil Walden in Macon, because he had been staying with the Allman Brothers. So there was a sort of circle of people, you know how it works, and So we all kind of knew each other. I had seen the Iron Butterfly a few times, through the years. And so when I went out there, when Johnny took this hiatus, Rod really wasn't in the picture yet. We weren't sure, but the Iron Butterfly's manager said, well, listen, there's this cat from Deep Purple who's relocated here. And we said, really? And they said, why don't we see if we can get all you people together? And that's how that started, where we all got introduced by Lee Wiesel.
Okay. Were you a fan of the Metamorphosis era of Butterfly? What did you think, quite honestly, when you saw that gig?
I thought I really liked that album, actually. And I thought Doug Ingle, who's a friend of mine, and I'm not saying this because he is, but I thought was a very underrated songwriter, sort of, and singer.
Me too.
I like that album.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. Very underrated. And when Butterfly broke up,
I got to tell you, Brian, I got to tell everybody a funny story.
Please do.
And everybody that's a Captain Beyond or Iron Butterfly fan, well, this is pretty funny. They called me one day in L.A., Lee did, and said that the Iron Butterfly had gotten this gig at Harrah's in Lake Tahoe. Now, those are great gigs. I mean, I know they're not rock and roll venues and all that stuff. I get it. But as far as a place to play, I mean, the lighting is great, the sound is phenomenal, everything about it is great. And so here's was the lineup of Iron Butterfly. Here's what went. It was Doug singing and playing just like on all the stuff. Lee was playing bass, Rhino was playing guitar, and I was playing drums. And we did like a 10-night residency there. And the people, Doug, I mean, everybody was raving about it. And, of course, we played sort of what the songs, sounded like, and then we went off and played them differently. And it was really funny. And
wow,
I'd start that drum solo off playing like 2 bars of what Ron would play, and then I just went off doing my own thing, and we just had a lot of fun with it. So it was the most unusual kind of combination of Iron Butterfly, but everybody loved it, so it was fun.
Well, it's like Captain Beyond with Doug Ingle.
Sort of, kind of. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It was a kind of a weird mix, but everybody, I mean, the 4 of us got on great, and Doug seemed perfectly at home. I mean, we did all that stuff off the Metamorphosis album.
You guys did Butterfly? Okay, so there's no Mike Panera?
No, it was just Rhino and Lee and Doug and I.
Okay, so, and you guys did Butterfly Blue?
I don't remember all those songs that we did or didn't do. I know we did, Brian, we did Easy Rider. We did Stone Believer. We did, I just can't remember. But we did quite a few off of there.
Okay.
We might not have done Butterfly Blue just because Mike was the one that was singing that, but I don't recall exactly.
Okay, man. Boy, do you have any tapes of that by any chance, or anybody have any tapes of that?
I wish I did. No, I don't have any tapes of it.
Wow. Okay. So now this gig, where is that in the history of getting Beyond together?
This gig is many, many miles down the road. This gig would have been in the mid-'80s.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, no, sir. No, I didn't mean to confuse you. This is way down the road.
Okay, gotcha, man. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Now, when you guys recorded the first album, was there any... Okay, let me back up. You were in the band, and the Live in Texas thing that came out. Now that's 73.
Yeah.
Okay, so my question is this: was "Distant Sun," which ended up coming out on "Sufficiently Breathless," was that in?
Yeah.
Had you already written that, and it just didn't make it to the first album? Were there any tracks that you laid down that did not make it to the first album?
Some of it didn't. I think that might have been one of them. That Texas show, I think we were playing with King Crimson on that thing.
Yeah.
And it was really, it was off the board, Brian, and I was really shocked that, somebody had, I guess if you really listen to it, it's okay, because it's a little better than I thought it would be, because when somebody said that had you heard this? And I said, no. And now I heard it a little bit with a little more, discerning attitude. But that was that's when we were really full force about that time.
I nearly swore there. We can't swear. It's public. It's a college. I almost swore. I caught myself.
Wow.
Well, listen, man, when you and I were talking earlier this week, you had some interesting things to say about touring with Crimson. Can you tell me any stories, fun or weird stories about how many shows did you guys do with Crimson?
I don't know. It was not very many. It was maybe half a dozen. You would play with different people, that they would be, you'd be booked with, just like we did with the Allmans or Alice Cooper or Trapeze or, different people you'd wishbone at, people you'd hook up with. They were just such a great band. And they still are.
Have you seen the three-drummer Crimson?
I have not.
I'd really be curious to know what you and other drummers would think of that.
I'm sure it's just tremendous because you can't play. There's a certain level that you have to play at. If you play with Santana, or you play with Jeff Beck, or you play with Robert Fripp or McCartney, et cetera. You don't mail it in. You either can do it or you can't. It doesn't matter what you play. You could be playing wax, paper, and comb, but you better be able to do it. And so I'm sure, having that said, that I'm sure they're just great. I know one of the drummers used to be with Mr. out of L.A., and I remember them when I lived there.
Oh, Mastelotto, right? Pat Mastelotto?
That's right. Very good player, and so, yeah.
I always wonder what they do with the kick drum. I always used to wonder that about the Grateful Dead, too. That's the only thing where I think it could get messy. But interesting segue, talking about the new Crimson and the new Captain Beyond. This Crimson can play all of the stuff they ever recorded with all the overdubs, and that's something I want to commend you for with this recent Captain Beyond. Finances are tough making music right now for everybody, and I just really want to commend you for having the extra guitars, the percussion. Is there any keyboard work on the new Captain?
There is.
Yeah.
There's one of the guys plays keyboards too. Yep.
So tell us about the new band. Where'd you find all these cats, man?
Well, this, of course, is always a difficult one, as Monty Python would say. The singer is from the UK, and we met several years ago, and then went through a number of people, trying to find the right prospects. And then this band, the new Captain Beyond, has actually been up and running about, I don't know, 2.5 years now, maybe.
Yeah, since 17, I think, right?
I'm trying to remember. Let me see. Yeah, about 2 years. and people just you get introduced to people. I had known Don, one of the guitar players, had actually played with Rhino. So Don was a Florida guy. Jeff, our bass player, had played with me with Rhino in the one time that we tried to restart the engine, and it didn't quite work out because of some personal issues that Rhino had. And then James Hoka is from Western New York, and my percussion player drummer guy is also from Western New York. So you just kind of get introduced sort of from one person to the next, and so that's pretty much how it always works.
Yeah. Now I'm curious, can we talk at all about the writing credits for the first two Beyond albums, or is that a touchy subject, or?
Not touchy to me.
Okay, cool, man.
Okay with me.
Okay. Well, you being credited as a writer and Rhino. Now, who handled most of the lyrics for the first album?
Rod and I did.
Okay.
Rod and I wrote all the lyrics for the first album.
Okay, man. Tell me, actually...
Well, I could break... I'll tell you what, Brian. I can even break it down for you.
All right, cool.
I wrote Dancing Madly Backwards. Rod wrote Mesmerization Eclipse. Rod wrote Myopic Void. I wrote Raging River of Fear. Rod wrote, I think the songs...
Frozen Over?
I wrote Frozen Over. I wrote 1,000 Days of Yesterdays. I wrote Can't Feel Nothing. He wrote As the Moon Speaks. He wrote all of that stuff was really between Rod and I. He's a fantastic lyricist. I mean, just a tremendous guy. I mean, I can't say enough about it.
Tell us the story. You were talking to me earlier on the phone this week. You start doing the ba-ka-dum-ba-kum-bam, and then rap.
Oh, well, you mean the Dance Madly Backwards drum part? Well, it wasn't anything. I mean, I just used to bang that silly thing out, at rehearsal, and, just waiting for people to figure out how to tune their guitars or whatever, You know what I mean? I mean, every drummer does that, and being a jazz freak that I am, I just happen to play this sort of heavy sort of pattern in 5/4, and then at some point after doing it a few times, Rhino started playing with me, and then Lee joined in, and all of a sudden now we're doing this thing. And then I had all these lyrics written for this song called Dancing Madly Backwards, and Rod said, let me see those. And then Rod he created the melody, and he started singing these lyrics just like you hear it. And how it turned out.
Wow. Was he able to keep every word and every syllable, or did he reshape it for his melody, or did he make his melody totally wrap around your exact already written words?
That's a really good question, Brian. I think for the most part, he stayed, true to form, really. I mean, it wouldn't have mattered to me. You can do whatever you want with it. If you have to change a syllable or a note or a letter or a consonant, it doesn't really matter. It's all about making the song work. And right. I'm sure there's a few places that he did. But I think for the most part, I think he stayed pretty much, to that. He wrote Armworth, which is another epic piece. Rod wrote the words to Armworth.
Yeah, what are the words? What was my arm worth when they took it away? What's the next line, man?
In the spirit of Rush, I said of Armistice Day.
Okay. Man, it's fun when you screw up lyrics. I thought when I was young, because I got the album right when it came out, man. In the spirit of Rosh Hashanah.
Spirit of Rosh Hashanah. Well, that's a new one.
Oh, man. Now, I've seen some Butterfly, Metamorphosis era Butterfly stuff on YouTube, and I noticed that Larry always used a Les Paul, but with you guys, he seemed to always use a live anyway, a Strat. Did he play Les Paul at all on the recordings?
No, he played strictly a Stratocaster. You're right. He did play a Les Paul with the Butterfly.
Maybe he wanted to
funny,
cut. He wanted to maybe cut through Panera's hollow body, maybe.
Well, I don't. I believe Mike was playing a 335 or that type of guitar. Mike had always played that kind of guitar. I don't really know. I never really asked Larry why he switched. I mean, I know that he was a big Jimi Hendrix fan. He didn't want to play like Jimi, but he just thought that Jimi, there was all the great guitar players, and then there was Jimi Hendrix. And so, he would aspire, is the word, to try to find a sound that he really liked, that could live with, and so that's probably why he was playing that.
And you use kind of a larger snare, don't you?
No, it's usually I've used about a 5.5 by 14. I mean, I've experimented with a bigger one, and but basically the same. Yeah.
Well, I always hear that you got to be friends with Dr. Bruford, right? When you lived in London?
Is he into medicine now?
No, I'm being formal. He's gone off and studied music and gotten his doctorates, you see.
I know he has, bless his heart. Yes, Bill and I used to be very close. I mean, we still are. We haven't seen each other. I used to go to Bill's house, Bill Bruford, if anybody's listening, and I would play drums and Bill would bang around on the piano at his house in Barnes and outside of London, and he would come over when I would be in town, and he would come up to our house in Hollywood when we would be there, and just a fantastic guy, and a great player, and so yeah. I mean, we just because of the logistics, you just don't see each other as much, and yeah, it's funny you said a lot of people are starting to call me Emperor now. So
Emperor Caldwell.
No, I'm just kidding.
Well, speaking of him playing piano, that's another question I had. When you write, do you write in your head? Do you write from the drums? Do you write from a piano or a guitar?
I do a little bit of everything. I have a piano. I have an electric piano. I have a bass, and a lot of it's in if I hear it. So it's a combination. I have I have a couple of guitars, and but all of that it's kind of interesting because as I mentioned before, people, Brian. I mean, I was doing this back. Even before I joined Johnny Winter, when I was in Florida, but people generally like to pigeonhole you, and I think anybody that's a musician, that's listening, will tell you that if they're a great pianist, for instance, that they also play jazz saxophone, but nobody wants to talk about how great a saxophone player that Johnny is, because they want to know him as a piano player. It's kind of strange, and so I was always singing and writing stuff all the time. I mean, and it's just how it was, and so I think playing drum. I only picked up drums because they were around. There was 3 instruments in those times. Drums and guitar and sax. I mean, that was it. And I kind of stumbled into drums, and all of a sudden that's what was happening. But yeah, it's an interesting kind of thing of the perception, how people see you, type of thing.
I know, man. I play, and I'm not well known. See, now I'm going to make it about me. This has suddenly become a Mark Maron interview.
All right.
No, but I mean, nobody knows who I am, but people still have their preference. Most people want to hear me play hammer dulcimer because nobody else plays hammer dulcimer. And
yeah.
And I'm like, dude, I play guitar, I sing, I play synthesizer. So even when people don't know who you are, they have their favorite aspect of you. It's strange. Now listen, man, I could keep you on the phone till I'm off the air at 3, so you got to let me know when you got to go, brother.
Got you. What time as you need.
Well, speaking of jazz and drummers, can we talk about other drummers?
Sure.
When you say jazz, who are we talking? Krupa, Rich? Who were some of your early influences? Art Blakey?
Let's see. Well, you probably Joe Morello was the one that was the one that really completely freaked me out the most, because I saw the Dave Brubeck Quartet when I was a child.
Okay.
And I was stunned would be an understatement.
What in particular?
Well, just the stuff that he played. I mean, when they got into Take 5 and he got into that drum solo, and I'm thinking, really? and I was trying to think of another instrument I might take up. Because he was just such a musical, he's probably the most musical drummer I've ever heard. I mean, and I listened to Buddy Rich as well, but Joe was the first one that really shocked me. And of course, Buddy, a guy named Rufus Speedy Jones. If anybody's never looked him up, Rufus Speedy Jones, check him out.
Okay, I don't know him, man.
Oh yeah, Duke Ellington. This guy could really bring it. And Tony Williams and.
Yeah, I was going to say, did you like any of the stuff that was happening with Miles? Yeah, Dejanette or anybody like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So many, just tremendous players that you. Sid Catlett, Chick Webb, people that are sort of forgotten about, unfortunately. And, I mean, I've seen people that would, scare you, and you've never heard about them. And this is something that people need to remember, that if you have a gift and you're lucky enough, really lucky, to be able to get out there with a platform to share it with people, you're really lucky, because thousands of people never got out of their bedroom, They never got out of there.
Yeah.
And
well, those are words I really need to hear right now, man. Thank you.
I'm talking about, absolutely, I'm talking about people that could really play. I mean, I ran into a guy in New York one day, and I'm not going to bore everybody with the details of this thing.
No, go ahead, man. Go ahead. We're here for stories.
I was playing in a group from Florida in Lake George one summer, trying to get arrested. Trying to just, and we darn near did achieve that. And this kid, this little guy, kept standing, off the side of the stage watching me. Brian, I didn't even know compared to what I know now. I didn't even know anything about playing drums at that time, and I thought I did, and some other people thought I was pretty good. And every night I saw this guy. We played this place for 3 weeks. And so one day, a couple of the guys in the band came over and said, have you seen that little guy that keeps standing off by the stage? Have you ever seen what this guy can do? And I said, no. He said, you need to come over this afternoon, and I think he might be over there. So in the afternoon, the place was open. So I went over there, and this guy he went up, sat down on this B3 organ, started playing B3 organ, and singing like Ray Charles. Okay. Now this guy looks like he's about 16. Then he walks over, picks up a guitar, and starts playing every Beatles song, every chord, just every song that, not every song, but every doggone song you could think of. So he's playing them. He's just playing through them, not showing off, just playing through them. And you're going, what? And then he went over and sat on my drums. And he started playing all of these syncopations and all this kind of stuff. And I'm going, man, this is the same kid? And at the end of the time, he came off the stage. I said, my God, what is your name? He said, my name's Kim Copley. I said, how did you learn how to do that? And he starts telling me that his father was a violinist, with a Turkish symphony orchestra, and that all this other stuff, and anything, and all this stuff. And I told him, I said, how do you tell somebody? I mean, does anybody know how great you are? You know what I mean? How do you say that? And fortunately for Kim, about 2 years later, he ended up playing on a couple of the Monkees' early recordings, the Monkees. So he did get some notoriety. But he was but the point is, he was only 18 when I saw him do this. And there's millions of people, that are out there, that play guitar. Well, they may not play guitar like Danny Gatton, but that are just, you're going, really? I might be looking for another line of work here.
Yeah.
So it's really wonderful. And when you see great players, Brian, when you really see people who can really play, that's the beauty of it. There's no place for jealousy. There's only place for envy or admiration. It's like, wow, to get to that place, it's just great. And whatever you play, I mean, you could be a concert violinist or whatever it is. It's a thing of beauty, really.
Now you toured. You did some touring in Europe in the 70s and stuff, right? Obviously.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm going to throw a couple names at you, and I know this is weird. It's a disease that music fans have. They want to know what their favorite musicians think of their other favorite musicians, and I realize you're all contemporaries. It's not like you're listening to each other. But for some reason, it's kind of interesting to hear what, so-and-so thinks of so-and-so. So I'm just going to throw out some names. Please don't be embarrassed if you've never heard of them. Did you ever see Magma, Christian Vander?
No.
Okay. How about Pierre Morello with Gong?
Yes. Tremendous.
Yeah. Were you friends with Bushy? Are you friends with Ron?
Oh, yeah. Sure.
Cool. Are they still cooking? Is there any kind of Butterfly anymore?
They have a group that's out there playing the Butterfly music, I believe. Yeah, I think they're out there.
Okay. What did you think of Phil Collins? Did you ever see him with Genesis in their prime?
I didn't see him live, but Phil's a great player. I mean, what are you going to say? You know what I mean? I'll tell you, Genesis actually opened up for Johnny Winter when we were playing in England once, and when Peter Gabriel was singing with him, and Phil was playing drums. Yeah.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Do you like any of? It's interesting, when Captain Beyond first hit, there was nothing like it. When I heard that, I got the album because I was already into Metamorphosis, and I saw that these two cats were on this album, and the album cover and the title sold me. I was already smoking weed, and this was the out there stuff for me. The first out there stuff for me. I wasn't into any.
You talk about the weed or the music?
Yes.
No, I'm kidding.
But what was my question, man? I remember when you guys first hit, terms like progressive rock weren't around yet. So I remember people calling you jazz rock because you did more than 1-4-5 progressions, I guess. But in ensuing years, you guys have been thrown into the progressive category. Did you like any of that stuff that they now? I know you said you dug Crimson. Did you not like a lot of that stuff? Did you think it was getting too far away from what rock and roll was all about? Did you appreciate what like Yes and Crimson and some of those bands were doing at the time?
I'm not sure I understand your question exactly, Brian.
Did you like any of that stuff as it was happening in the 70s when you came across what we now call progressive rock?
Yeah, and I mean, I personally like anything that's great music. I mean, sure. I mean, you see, the thing about the Captain Beyond was, we weren't trying to be like anything. I mean,
and you weren't. You weren't. You were so different than everything else.
Even now, they can say, "Oh, you're in such and such a category." I don't even know what category we're in because I don't. I mean, to me, you got to be able to have songs and be able to sing the song, hum the songs, and most of the songs, if you listen to the Captain Beyond's music, you can sing along with them. I mean, they're completely. I don't care what time signature is. You listen to 1,000 Days of Yesterday, even though that's in 7/4, you can actually sing along with that thing. I don't know. I mean, people just want to put you in categories, and that's okay. I don't know whether it's just we really never really weren't really listening to much of anybody. Honestly, we were just trying to figure out what are we doing here. I mean, I'm telling you the truth. We were just trying to do something that was unique. And that when people heard it, they said, "Man, this is great. It's something different, and it doesn't sound like everybody else." It wouldn't have served us any purpose if we had formed that band, and we had started writing these songs, and it had sounded just like everything that had been well trodden for the last 5-6 years. I mean, you know what I mean? What good would that have done? It wouldn't have enlightened anybody. It wouldn't have been any fun to play. People wouldn't have cared about hearing it. All we need is another version of Canned Heat, or whatever. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
So we were looking, so we were exploring, so what can we do with this? Let's see here. And this is really where we still are with the new Captain Beyond. It's the same sort of mindset. And, but we listened, in those times we would listen to, everything that was good. And, yeah, I mean, let me tell you something real quick. I went down to see the Mahavishnu Orchestra at the Whiskey A Go-Go when about 3 people knew who they were, because I had gotten their album because Billy Cobham had played with a band called Dreams and the Brecker Brothers.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, they opened up for Johnny Winterand at the Fillmore West one night, couple of nights, and of course they were just screaming, but not a lot of, I'm not trying to be mean, I mean, not a lot of memorable songs per se that I remember, but they were just unbelievable as usual. Well, anyway, I found out that Billy had this involvement in this new band called the Mahavishnu Orchestra, So I bought the album anyway, and and Lee Dorman and I went down to the Whiskey, jumped in this booth, and, they come out, and, we sort of went out of there with our hair looking a lot more like Don King's. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, you guys didn't sound like anything. When that first album came out, it really, it's weird to turn people on to stuff decades later after it's been absorbed. I often think that people who do stuff, they don't realize the effect they've had on people. You have people coming up to you and telling you this stuff, but like most of us, compliments are kind of harder to take sometimes than criticism. But Captain Beyond changed everything, and I think you can tell because of the longevity of that first album in particular.
It's shocking, and it really is. And the amount of people, I talked to this well-known producer, what I won't mention, and they did a big interview of him a couple of years ago in England, and they asked him what his top 10 albums of all time, and he listed, Sgt. Pepper's and various other people, Electric Ladyland, and also listed Captain Beyond, and I was shocked. But you see, this is what you, I don't know, unconsciously you try to do this, or you want to do something that's, whatever your statement, you want to do something hopefully that's, that's lasting. I mean, nothing that sounds the same as everything else is going to matter. You have to do something that's different. Another surf song wouldn't have helped the Beach Boys, but Pet Sounds certainly did change the deal.
Yeah.
So you have to find something, and I just am thankful that the generations of people have rolled over, and every time Captain Beyond, would come to the Midwest, the Chicago people have been, and I'm not a person that patronizes people. Believe me, if you knew me, you would know I don't do this. And I'm not doing it now. Have been tremendous people. The audiences in Chicago, unbelievable. And I really think it's because you don't fool the people in Chicago about music. They've seen them all. You know what I mean? You just don't fool them. It's like going to play in Texas. If you don't play well in Texas, they'll let you know. And and I think Captain Beyond has always had a great reception when we've come into the Midwest and into the Chicago area, and it's always been great. And I like I said, I really think it's because they're music people. There's places you can go and play, Brian. They're not music people. Oh, they'll turn out, but they really don't know what you're doing. They really don't get it. They're polite. They'll applaud and all that, but it's not the same. You see what I mean?
Oh, I believe you. We talked about that earlier in the week. By the way, I forgot to do my station ID at the top of the hour. You are listening to WZRD Chicago, 88.3 FM, WZRDchicago.org for streaming throughout the world and beyond, wherever the interwebs are received. Any new music coming out with you guys, do you think?
Well, we're looking to put out a new a live album here in the next several months, so that'll be the probably the next release.
Is that in the can already, or have you recorded it yet?
It's not recorded yet, but this is what this is going to be the next step, and I think it's the next logical thing. And then we're going to do a studio album, and I think that'll be the next thing after that, and I'm hoping to do that in the fall. So, we're just trying to get all of the business matters and all of that stuff in place as everything else is going, and plus trying to get out there and re-expose the music to the people and play the stuff for the people and meet everybody and introduce people to the band and all that kind of stuff. So, it's a busy time.
Has reacting to what you said about Chicago, I was kind of shocked myself at all the replies I got when I was promoting this interview on Facebook this week. There is something about Chicago, and I'm not just saying that because I'm from here, but there really is something about here where truth in talent seems to be just in our blood. It's every time you listen to an interview with a director or an actor or a comedian or a musician, about 6 or 7 out of 10 of them came from here or went through here. Chicago's a weird place. You don't make it here. You grow yourself here, and you go to the coasts usually, or down to Texas or somewhere else to, quote, make it. But in order to become what you need to become, Chicago is a place where you kind of cut your teeth. And
your groundwork, yeah.
Yeah. When was the last... Go ahead, man.
That's true. No, I think that's true. When you look at the groups that have come out of Chicago, especially in the '60s, think about how many groups that have come out of Chicago that had hit records. Now that you might say, oh, they only had one or two hit records. Well, there's a lot of people that had no hit records. And Shadows of Night, Crying Shames, the Buckinghams. You could just keep going on and on and on.
CTA.
Of course, Chicago. It's unbelievable. And I really think it's because the people really are music people. And, like I said, you play Carnegie Hall, you're going to get a different set of ears in a place like that than, if you're playing in someplace in Wyoming. It's just they like it. It's not that they don't enjoy it. It's just different.
Yeah. When was the last time Beyond was here before this new? Do you remember? Because I never saw you guys, unfortunately. So I'm looking forward to.
I'm trying to remember, Brian. It was
somebody on Facebook said they saw you at the Aragon in '73. Does that ring a bell? The Aragon Ballroom.
We were at the Aragon, but several years later, we did a swing through Chicago where we had, we played every town, every city, Chicago Heights. We played, what was the name of the club that, Beginnings?
In Schaumburg. Oh, my God, yeah. Speaking of Chicago, I think that was owned by the drummer from Chicago, right? I think.
We played a place called Luigi's. We played every city. It seemed like, and I know I'm exaggerating here, in Wisconsin. And so, yeah, this would have been in the mid-76, 77 period, and then perhaps a little bit later than that. So it's been quite a while. Yeah.
You mentioned Fillmore West earlier. You got any fun Bill Graham stories?
Well, the one the one Bill Graham story is that you don't cross him.
I take it. Oh no! Did one of you guys cross him?
No, I didn't, and neither did anybody that I was with. But I know other people that would come in there, and different groups would come in there and thought that they would sort of throw their weight around, and until they had to come face to face with Bill, and that was the end of that. So, yeah, he there was no messing about with him, and but that's why those shows were tremendous. Those venues were unbelievable to play at. The sound, the lighting, the whole thing was one of the best in the world,
Yeah. I can imagine. One question I did want to ask you real quick before we go is about the sound of your drums on that first album. I really thought that was a different sound. That was one of the things about the Captain Beyond album that was so amazing. The music, the writing, the execution, but the production was really interesting. The drums really had a very full sound to them. Can you talk about the recording aspect of the drums?
I think really it was that same Ludwig classic kit that I had been playing all those years prior, that has a very identifiable sort of, maple sound to it. And that's really, all it was, tuned, well, you tune them right. And that's basically what it was. That's all, that's all I did to them, and hope for the best, really. And everything else was up to the knob turners,
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, listen, man, I'm going to put on a tune here, and I want to just say goodbye to you privately, so just stay on the line for 1 second. I'm going to take you off air. And, Bobby, this has been fantastic. Thank you for a fantastic interview.
It's my pleasure. I've enjoyed every minute of it, and I'd like to invite everybody that's within the sound of this interview to come on out and see us at Reggies this couple of weeks from now, and we'd love to shake your hand and say hi to you.
Well, I'm happy to report that Friday night, the 12th of April, is sold out. But you guys are going up to Detroit Saturday, and you're coming back Sunday night on the 14th, and I believe tickets are still available for Captain Beyond at Reggies on the 14th of April.